A few weeks ago when I was working on the hit production, Why Yu-Gi-Oh! Is So Hard, I made a thumbnail depicting someone in the rigorous process of learning Yu-Gi-Oh!, annotating a card, Endymion, the mighty master of magic, infamous for being the boogeyman of ridiculous card text. And instead of marveling at the beauty of my own work, it got me thinking, why don't we clean up those card effects? Sticking to that annotation idea, the first notion to put forward is color coding. Yu-Gi-Oh! Effects can often be broken up into many common parts, usually costs, effects, restrictions, and limitations. In fact, cards from Konami's newest product, Yu-Gi-Oh! Rush Duel, physically separate their costs and effects. Here's a mock-up of a modern card with highlights breaking up all the parts. Though if you're looking at this right now and thinking, wow, this guy's really making a lot of sense, it really does make the card clear, know that you've been duped and outed as a sociopath. After all, think of all the colorblind people. It's why colors in Magic have symbols. It's why traffic lights have 3 separate circles for each color. It's why, luckily, Konami Japan, or the OCG, engineered a solution using little numbers to separate their card effects. Bonus points to this solution as it cleans up the limitation effects, making it clear which effects are once per turn, instead of playing text leapfrog with very carefully placed each of the following effects. Now, formatting improvements do exist in the Western TCG game. Cards with distinct separate effects like Triple Tactics Talent and Lightning Storm properly format their chosen effects into separate bullet points. Though, with the really heavy word cards, I would imagine they'd have to slash their font size in half to achieve this effect. Circling back to Rush Duel card design, I really like the condensed level stars instead of having to count the little circles one by one. Even the Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime as far back as Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds displayed levels with one number. Thinking about it now, it's laughable how Konami seemingly understands these issues, but while doing so little to combat it, specifically in regards to the TCG. Remember when everyone made fun of the guy on Reddit who was adamant that Master Duel gave advantages to Japanese players?
Konami gives Japanese players better hands.
Turns out the dude was right. Switching to Japanese just gives you the cleanest card text. Of course, no discussion of card bloat would be complete without the mandatory keywords discussion. For the uninitiated, keywords are what card games like Magic and Hearthstone use to avoid this. They communicate an effect or ability of a card with a single word. Now, Yu-Gi-Oh! Actually does have some remnants of this design. For example, piercing. A bunch of cards say, if this card battles a defense position monster, inflict piercing battle damage to your opponent. I love this example because it shows just how unnecessarily bloated the card text is in Yu-Gi-Oh! Like, the keyword's right there. Is it even possible to inflict piercing damage besides on defense position monsters? And I feel like you could just remove the word piercing anyway and still have the same concept. It's like saying, if this card is targeted by card effects, negate card effects that target this untargetable card. Also, I think it would be hilarious if Konami just started to sprinkle these common keywords in with the bloat. Like, nestled in between Triple Burst Dragon's quick effect negation and its tribute effect was just piercing in bold letters. You could argue things like tuner are keywords since they instill a certain effect without needing additional words, but Konami cannot stay consistent with that since cards like Spirit and Gemini all have their how-to effects bloating their card effect windows. One of the most understated aspects of Yu-Gi-Oh! Card bloat has to do with restrictions. Back in the ye old days, cards didn't have any sort of once per turn restrictions. This was an awful idea. It gave way to a bunch of FTKs and infinite loops. Eventually, it was replaced by the text once per turn, sometimes referred to as soft once per turns. This was also not a good idea, as multiple copies could once again create some unintended gameplay consequences. And that leads us to where we are today, where practically the bottom third of all cards printed within the last few years are filled with the text, "You can only use each effect of Darwinian Dingus, the demonic demiurge, once per turn." Finally, and the most direct solution to the card bloat is just to reduce the amount of effects. Secret effects are very emblematic of this issue. For the uninformed, secret effects are those effects slapped onto cards that just never really come up in an average game and serve the practical purpose of inflating card word counts so that people can make scary graphics for their anti-Yu-Gi-Oh! TED Talks. Like Gallant Granite, which lets you detach its material to add any rock-type monster to your hand. Think Block Dragon or Lord of the Heavenly Prison. It also lets you set a rock from your hand face down. Think Morphing Jar or Block Dragon? I will, however, give a pass to lore-based effects like how the Sword Soul Synchro support card Incredible Ecclesia the Virtuous has synergy with fusion monsters as a homie nod to the boy himself. But otherwise, I think we can trim some of the fat. All in all, I think I speak for all of us when I say that Yu-Gi-Oh! Card design leaves a lot to be desired. From cleaning up text bloat to clarity in levels to full card art, there is a lot of room for improvement. But please don't go after the Gonzo names. This is what I live for.